Hello, everyone. Welcome to Avaya's Healthy Aging Curriculum. I am Andy Anderson. My partner, Ike Allen, and I are teachers, mentors, and the co-owners of Avaya University. Avaya is the creator of over 1,000 books, films, courses, teachings, and other supportive resources. Thank you so much for joining us, as always. Our fellow teacher, Panache Desai, is here today. He's going to talk with you about maintaining vitality through authenticity. Panache is a best-selling author, a storyteller, and a business and life catalyst. For over 10 years has been using energetic transformation to positively change the lives of countless people around the globe. Thank you so much for being here with us, Panache.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be with you all.
Excellent. So, hey, let's talk about your new book. I know you have a new book called You Are Enough that is being released by Harper One very, very soon. So let's talk about this.
I would love to. Where would you like to start?
Well, I guess what encouraged you, what inspired you to get started to write the book in the first place?
In working with hundreds of thousands of people now from all over the world, from all walks of life, I've seen that there's one common factor that has to be addressed inside of every individual, and that's their ability to receive. And the one thing that undermines that more than anything else is this notion of not being good enough. And it's actually something that's programmed into our perception, into our subconscious, and drilled home through the judgment and the criticism that we receive through life and living. Because we're trying to live up to a standard that's absolutely unable to obtain. And that standard is continually shifting and changing and morphing. So it's like trying to hit a target that's always moving, that you can never reach, or that you'll never be able to actually directly hit. And so in life, we have to withdraw our awareness away from all of these things that are just co-opting our attention back to ourselves. And when we realize that we're enough, we start living life from the inside out instead of continually absorbing information and data points as to how well we're doing from the outside in. So when you look at the spiraling nature of depression and anxiety in the world today, and even the alarming rate of increase in suicide, it's because more and more we're comparing this self-image that we've created, this identity, against the self-image and identity of another. And of course, in that comparison, we're either going to feel better or worse. Right? There are only ever those two scenarios available to us. So in writing You Are Enough, I'm writing what I believe is the antidote to modern living. It's a much needed in-depth look into who we are as human beings, how we function, how we can actually support our longevity and well-being, and the importance of why now in the modern world we have to look to ancient solutions to begin to recalibrate our consciousness, recalibrate our experience, and up-level our energy to be the best version of ourselves that we can be.
Beautiful. Thank you. And that is, everyone watching, I'm sure, can relate so much to either feeling less than, feeling better than, ping-ponging between the two, right? It's such a battle to be in that space. And I too have experienced that. And it seems like that is part of our human condition. So I'm so glad that you're putting this out there for the world to help us. So you touched on a little bit of longevity, and since this is the Healthy Aging event, what is, when we tap into We Are Enough and start living from the inside out, how does that help us in the aging process? How does that help us live longer? Could you speak to that?
So right now we have this kind of idea of aging that's perpetuated through celebrity culture that's absolutely unobtainable. So people are trying to, in some way, improve or augment who they are. And this kind of aging, anti-aging phenomenon has been geared toward solely physical appearance. However, what we're not looking at, and the most important thing of all, is how we feel inside. Right. You can have all of the resources in the world to augment physical appearance, or to improve your physical appearance, or to get all of the drugs and all of the things that you need to get in order to make sure that your body is functioning at its optimal level. However, if you are not at peace with yourself and you haven't taken the steps to take a look at what's undermining you in your subconscious, you're not going anywhere. Because the biggest determinant to longevity, health, and well-being isn't our ability to conform to a certain program or a certain methodology. It's not that. It's the degree to which we've taken the time to tend to our subconscious, to tend to the undermining and limiting factors that we have inside of us in the form of emotion or beliefs about ourselves that we keep reinforcing. Because the body is an infinitely intelligent organism. And if we stay stuck in these loops, right, of not being enough, of judgment, of criticism, of addictive patterns and behaviors that we can't seem to unwind or access the root cause of, then it doesn't matter how much we want to be conscious and move toward this 120-year possibility of life and living with life extension, we're not going to get there. So we have to tend to who we are at the foundational core level in order to then access all of these tools and solutions and have them be beneficial, and to have then our journey into health and longevity and vitality become one that's sustainable, instead of one that's filled with peaks and valleys, one that's perpetuated with starts and stops, one that doesn't allow us to truly make the most of all the advancements that we have in the modern world, to truly live disease-free, illness-free, pain-free until our last breath.
So do you have strategies, exercises, tips, tools to share with our viewers on how to really get into our subconscious, get into those I'm not enough thoughts and beliefs and emotions?
So from the moment you were born, your perception has been programmed. It began with your parents. They lovingly reinforced behaviors that were acceptable and behaviors that were unacceptable. And those behaviors were passed down by their parents. Once you make it through the parental level of conditioning, you then make it into the school system. And in the school system, we are then basically conditioned to become a docile and compliant member of the workforce. That's basically it. The more docile, the more compliant you are, the better grades you get, and the more you're able to progress on that timeline of academia. Once you make it out of academia into the work environment, depending on how much you've been able to tamper down your creativity and tamper down your enthusiasm and who you authentically are, that's the degree to which you're able to then excel in that arena. So the root cause of all human suffering is inauthenticity. Every single one of you that's watching doesn't need a teaching. You don't need to be healed. You don't need to be fixed. You're not broken. You're just looking outside of you for what you can only discover inside. And in this world where we're perpetually seeking for something outside of us, we now have all these advancements in neuroscience, in neuroplasticity. We now have all of this research and all of this data that shows you just how dynamically infinite you are at the level of the body. So here's where it becomes important for you in the context of longevity. You have been designed perfectly. Now, that means that you have to work with your uniqueness. You have to gain a level of awareness and understanding as to who you are and how you are in each moment. And here's what I mean. If we can cultivate a heightened level of awareness about the food that we're eating, for example, we can then become aware about the impact of that food immediately in the moment. Instead of having it lead to a scenario where we've got inflammation in the body, and the body's constantly it's stuck in this kind of inflammatory, repetitive cycle that's the root cause now of all degeneration, whether it be at the level of the brain or at the level of the organs. So what we want is to introduce a level of awareness and introduce a level of consciousness into every process that we're engaged in. And that's going to require a commitment on the part of all of you that are watching to truly dedicate yourselves to life extension, to longevity, and to being who you are. So the first thing is to meet yourself with acceptance. We don't need to stop thinking, stop feeling. We don't need to repress or suppress. The reason why we have this heightened level of depression in the world is because it's not okay to be sad. It's not okay to feel our feelings. It's not okay to have a day where we're experiencing salty water running down our cheeks, which is all sadness is, and then we give it a meaning or a context, right? And it's the same thing with our anxiety. Like, we live in a society where fear is seen as a weakness, and it isn't. Who you are isn't wrong. What you have to do is start to become coherent and congruent with who you are in the moment. And that happens through acceptance. So as much as possible, become aware of how you're feeling inside and accept it. Don't fix it, heal it, or change it. Offer it no resistance. Simply be the witness of it and allow whatever it is to flow through you. Same thing with anger, same thing with every heightened experience that we're having. Because the more we can meet all of these things with a sense of awareness and with a sense of acceptance, the more we begin to diffuse all of these heightened charges that have been accumulated inside of us throughout the course of life and living, throughout the course of all this repression or suppression. So your average human being is like a ticking time bomb. It's only a matter of time until all of that subconscious material and all of that heightened emotion erupts. And typically what happens is it needs an outlet. And the way it tries to find an outlet is through the physical body. So it manifests in the form of a disease or an illness, because when we trace disease and illness back, what is that? It's a lack of harmony, and it's a dissonance internally. So awareness, self-observation, self-acceptance, all of these practices, self-love, meeting yourself with a degree of self-love in the moment, empathy, compassion, all of these ways of being that we can direct towards ourselves that are free, that don't cost anything, you're not dependent on anybody for them, you're able to engage in them, you're able to be completely empowered in this ecosystem that is this biology in order to produce the most optimal result that you can have. And so I would recommend accepting yourself, being aware of your breath, resting in the awareness of your breath transforms your life into a living meditation. It takes it out of the context of the meditation room into every moment, and that can be applied even in the midst of heightened emotion. If you can continue to relax and breathe in the presence of heightened emotion, that heightened emotion will subside, okay? And then the third thing is to set up triggers or behaviors that reinforce the outcome that you're wanting to move toward. You know, I have the honor of working with 7 people individually in a mentoring capacity. And the consistency, the commitment, and the repetition is the reason why they're able to actualize what it is that they want. Okay? It takes a certain level of commitment on the part of us. It takes being honest about who we've become in order to truly dedicate the time that we need, which is the greatest commodity of all, toward the outcome that we're wanting to experience. So I wholeheartedly and firmly believe that it's possible for everybody watching this to be completely at harmony in themselves, and that being in harmony in yourself is the key to not just being healthy, but it's the key to living 120 years in your body without disease, without illness, and without any form of issue or problem. It's up to you.
Beautiful. I love it. Yeah. You know, it's interesting. You mentioned, right, living 120 years, right, in our bodies without disease. I've always find it interesting and looking at different longevity studies and stuff that, right, people say, well, I died of this disease or I died of that disease, but what is, right, a natural cause, right? You know, eventually our bodies, like disease or not, right, we will all die, I think. Haven't seen it go a different direction at this point. So, but yeah, no, that's beautiful. So like, as we age, as we get older, for people watching this right now, they want to age in the most healthful way possible. Do you think it's more difficult as we age to be authentic? Do you think because we've like, I guess that's totally just a belief though. So like, but I can imagine people, right, saying, oh, well, when I was 20, it was so much easier. Right. And
actually, when you were 20, it was a lot harder because you were still trying to play the game for 10. So my favorite people to hang out with are children and 70 and 80-year-olds because they've gone past caring about what they look like. They don't care what they look like. You know, there's no identification with their self-image. You're always going to get the truth. And so as you're aging and as you're getting older, this is more important, because what's happened in Western society and culture is that all of a sudden, once you get past a certain age, you're no longer useful. Why? Because again, it goes back to, we've been conditioned to be units of production. And so once it's deemed that you're no longer a unit of production, your value isn't inherently present anymore. And that's a lie. You are valuable, you are necessary, you matter. And I don't care right now if you're 40 or 50 or 70, you have the right to live a life that you love. You have a right now to be healthy and vital. And in this age of the internet, you have access to every piece of information that you could ever imagine, as well as every thought leader, every study, every piece of research, as well as tools and information that you need. So ignorance in the age of the internet is an option, okay? You are alive at the greatest time in human history, okay? We have advances in science. We have advances in the impact of metaphysical work and energy work, meditation. Breath work now is becoming very popular in the world. There's another ancient practice called pranayama. So we're living in a world where if anyone's going to actualize their potential of living to 120 years old without disease and illness, it's you. But you have to start now. Regardless of where you are, you have to start now. And it's very simple. How do I feel when I eat certain foods? What's my body's response? How do I feel when I'm around certain people? How do I feel when I listen to certain music? How do I feel when I'm watching certain movies? How do I feel when I'm in certain environments that are stress-based? How am I able to process and navigate? So human beings don't have any inherent or intrinsic limitation. It's just an inability to process. It's an inability to process. And the more we expand our ability to process, the more we're ensuring that everything remains in a state of flow, everything remains in a state of harmony, and that you, where you are right now, can actualize your potential. You can actualize it. We have everything we need now at this point in human history. So I'm more excited than ever about this conversation and about diving into this material, because we are on the verge of a tipping point where science is now finally caught up with what the ancient yogis and mystics have known for millennia, from all religions and all traditions. And that the more we merge the two, because I firmly believe that science is just translating metaphysical teachings into a context that's understandable to the Western mind, right? But it's all the same. It's all the same thing. Like quantum physics is the language of the soul. It's all the same thing, okay? So right now, where you are, regardless of how old you are, regardless of how you've lived up until this moment, it's not too late. If you're present to diabetes, if you're present to any kind of heart issue, any kind of neurological issue, we're now seeing, through a shift in diet, through a shift in exercise, through a shift in environment, through a shift in the way of being, a fundamental improvement in those conditions, if not a complete remission. Mm-hmm. So it's always been in your hands. It's always been up to you. Your health is the one sovereign right that you have complete ownership over. And it's in the choices that you're making. Tend to making the choices that support you in achieving that outcome, and take care of the ones that take care of all of the unconscious material that's undermining your ability to move cohesively forward toward being radiant and vital in the way that I know you have the potential to be.
Beautiful. Awesome. Yes. And there's so much out there today about reversing or significantly decreasing things like type 2 diabetes and heart disease. And I mean, you name autoimmune diseases, so many different things. So it is so possible, which is the beautiful thing. So could you give a couple of examples of how science, like what are some examples of how science is catching up to, right, what we've known for millions of years or whatever in the world of, yoga and meditation and all that kind of stuff?
So the best thing that ever happened to yoga and mindfulness and breath work and all of these ancient practices was that it became popular for geeks. And what I mean is people that want to research and study and dive into data, right? Which is kind of the antithesis of being a yogi. But thank God the people who have that skill set got involved in it. And some of my favorite geeks are Joe Dispenza, Greg Bowden, Bruce Lipton, some of my favorite geeks, right? So what does that mean? That means that now people are actually studying what happens to brain waves when they're in meditative states. They're now studying epigenetic shifts that occur when we're in certain states of coherence. Okay, they're now paying attention to stress levels and the impact of stress levels or cortisol levels in the body when people have a consistent meditative practice or mindfulness. So science, thanks to this geeky nature of research, is now validating the fact that in my cultural heritage, we've known that when you adhere to a certain diet or a certain lifestyle or a certain way of being, and you're consciously involved in stress mitigation or stress reduction through mindfulness, breath work, whatever that is, yoga, you are naturally promoting life extension. And so we now are at a point where, and also I will say that Maharishi in the Maharishi school of Ayurveda was a big component in that prior to actually Joe and all of these guys getting involved in the science of it. I'm grateful for the fact that they are, because I don't have to get into that, right? I can just focus on doing what it is that I love doing. And if somebody needs an explanation, they can just watch a YouTube video with Joe or Bruce or Greg and get that information. So we're alive at a time when we can literally shift our physiology through how we feel about ourselves. Now, just imagine if you could wake up every day feeling that you were enough. Just imagine if you could wake up every day feeling as if you're valued, as if you have a sense of worth and purpose, not because of what somebody says or does, but just innately because you're here, because you're human. And at some point, we have to revert back to the humanity that we are, instead of what it is that we're doing in order to generate, right? At some point, we have to revert back to the humanity that we are, instead of the medical process or procedure or journey that we're on. At some point, we have to revert back to the truth, okay? And in that reverting back to the truth, which is what all of this research and science is doing, all of this research and science is simply pointing back to you that you're the solution, that you have the answer, that when you take control of your pharmacology, when you take control of the emotional state that is dominant inside of you, when you take control of the mental process, okay, that you're living inside of, you have complete control of this infinite piece of information that is just it's the miracle of all miracles, okay? And so this is why I'm so happy, because every time Joe does one of his retreats, he's plugging people up to machines, he's doing blood analysis, he's doing all of the work. Deepak's done so much of this work. I'm so grateful to him. So many of my peers and colleagues that have this proclivity towards science have now taken it a step beyond where it was, to where now they're proving and validating everything that I've been teaching and saying. And of course, everyone before me has been teaching and saying for thousands and thousands and thousands of years.
Beautiful. I'm so glad you mentioned Joe, because I love Joe Dispenza. He's he's quite the character, and he's actually featured in our Avaya film, The Tao of Quantum Physics. So we've known him and his work for years, and it is absolutely beautiful, and it is beautiful that we all have our own calling in the world of diving into the science versus diving into something else, or both, or whatever. So one thing that comes to mind, another thing that I've learned in the world of longevity is relationships are obviously very important.
Yes.
So if we wake up every day knowing that we are enough, how do you see that affecting the relationships, the loved ones in our lives?
So the person who lives with an absence of need has all of the leverage in life. When you realize that you're the source of the love that you're experiencing in the presence of another, you're free. So what holds us back is this fear that in some way, in the absence of an individual, we're not going to be loved, or we're not going to experience the love that we're feeling, right? So again, it comes back to recognizing that we're the source of all experience, we're the source of all emotion, where everything is self-generated. Just because it's happening in the presence of another person, it doesn't mean that it's because of them, okay? They're the trigger that's helping us access the emotion that was always inside of us, because you can't experience anything that isn't already inside of you. It's impossible. Okay, so even as it relates to your divinity is already inside of you. Your vitality is already inside of you. The health and well-being that you're looking for is already inside of you. Now it's just a question of aligning with that experience consciously, instead of unconsciously undermining it by your face being in the fridge at midnight, or you're on a juice cleanse and all of a sudden you're sneaking cheese sticks, right? And you all know what I'm talking about because you're all doing it, right? So that's the stuff that we have to unwind. Right, is how are we unconsciously undermining? Now, relationships are great because relationships are mirrors for who we are. And the most mature way to navigate through relationship is to be accountable for both the projection and the reflection. So one of my favorite attractions at the fair in London when I was a child was the Hall of Mirrors. I love it. Like you'd stand in front of a mirror, all of a sudden you'd have a really skinny head and a really big body and these really skinny legs that are about this short. And in front of every mirror, you would be portrayed a different way. And that's the nature of relationship. Everyone that we're seeing, everyone that we're interacting with, everything that we're coming into contact with is us. Everything is a manifestation of our consciousness. What's inside is being played out outside. It's just that we don't have that level of awareness. So we think that somebody's doing something to us or something's happening outside of us to make us feel a certain way. And that's just not the truth. There are two reasons why life is unfolding. One is to elevate your frequency, and the second is to expand your consciousness. And that's it. And the more we use relationships, which are the greatest catalyst of all, to elevate our energy into love and to expand our consciousness, not only will you live to 120, but you'll probably ascend. Probably just, we're probably at the point, we're close to, somebody's going to do it. I'm waiting for somebody to do it, where we just literally get to a point where we are so freed up in who we are on a subconscious level, which is the only place where transformation happens, by the way, at the level of energy. When you change your energy, you change your life. When I was with Oprah, that was a kind of a phrase that we pioneered. When you change your energy, you change your life, right? And that's subsequently now something that Joe's using, and Greg and Bruce, right? But what is that? It's just a 5,000-year-old teaching translated in a modern context that makes sense to people. That's all it is, right? So how we navigate relationship is by owning what we're feeling in the presence of the other, understanding that the other is a manifestation of ourselves. And that's freedom. That's freedom. That's complete empowerment. Until we have that, we're not empowered. We're a victim to other people's thoughts. We're a victim to other people's emotions. We're a victim to other people's actions. Even worse, we're a victim to what's happening in the news. We're a victim to what's happening somewhere in the world that we're not even connected to, and so on and so on and so forth. And what's all that doing? Stress, cortisol, inflammation, and that's degenerative, right? Whereas life-affirming behavior is generative and restorative, and that's what we want.
Awesome. Thank you. I love that. So one final question before we talk about the book that you are releasing soon. Again, what is healthy aging to you?
Being who you are and loving who you are the way you are. And recognizing that you don't have to conform to whoever's on the cover of AARP that month. You don't have to age like your favorite actress or actor, right? You have to understand that these people have an investment in their self-image and that their career depends on their self-image being a certain way. But that's not true for you. I've met some of the most radiant 113-year-olds you could ever imagine. And you know what? They were just so simple inside and so loving and so themselves. And so the secret, I'm about to tell you the secret, secret to making it to 120 is fully committing to being the miracle that is you and eradicating everything inside of you that has you believing that the miracle that you are in some way is deficient. Because when I see you, oh my God, there's just so much light and so much potential in all of you, in every capacity, regardless of how your life has been. So we are at a crossroads right now. You're hearing this information because you're at a crossroads. Maybe there's a health challenge, maybe there's a crisis, maybe there's just something that's happening in your life that's prompting you to wake up to how important this thing called the human body is, right? Our faculties, the way we navigate life. Whatever that is, I want you to know that you've got what it takes to get through it. And that when you get that you're enough, everything changes.
Thank you. Oh, so beautiful. So everyone, there is a button below this video that leads over to Panache's new book. So is there anything else you want to share about the book itself that people can pre-order and order today?
There's a beautiful bonus with it that I've created especially for you. It's a boot camp. It's an $800 value. I personally was going through a bit of a health issue. I wasn't healthy at all, and I hadn't been working out and exercising. And there was basically an amazing human being that came into my life, whose name was Sarge. He was a combat veteran and medic in the army, and he really helped me in the biggest way and turned my life around. And basically, I was in a boot camp, and I was waiting for the right time to create this boot camp experience, because for me, no matter what I was going through, I felt supported. I felt like I was going to make it. I felt like somebody was there advocating on behalf of me, that no matter what was going on, that this person wasn't going to, abandon me or in some way leave me in the middle of the process. And I have to say that that boot camp experience fundamentally shifted my experience. And all you have to do is go back and look at a picture of me when I was at Oprah and look at me now. Mm-hmm. Right? So that difference is becoming conscious. So the main thing is this: I believe in you. It's not too late. All you need is the right support. So let me be that hand for you in the same way that Sarge was that hand for me. And let me show you a version of yourself that you have yet to know. And maybe in discovering that version of you, you'll discover the miracle that you are. and the blessing that is your life. So I can't wait for you to experience this book. I can't wait for you to experience this boot camp. I can't wait for you to experience yourself as the totality of who you are in this world, as pure vitality, pure potential, pure being, pure awareness, as the manifestation of this infinite reality in human form, experiencing uniquely.
I think this is at least the fourth time that I have had tears in my eyes as you've been talking. So thank you. It's been beautiful.
I'm so happy. You know what? I have to tell you that I'm so grateful because, you know, there's so much content, but there's a lack of curated content. And what's required in an age of, you know, this kind of explosion of information is the ability to curate it and to have it be specific, on trend, and manageable, and also have it be impactful. And so I'm so grateful for you, because I understand how hard it is to manage the logistics, to manage, you know, every aspect of this, to be able to bring this information through. And I can just tell by looking at you, the level of love that you have in your heart for all of the people that come, that for you, this is a calling, and that means the world to me. And so I'm honored to contribute to this wonderful foundation that you've created, and to be able to support you in supporting the world in fully vibrant, vital lives. You know, there's nothing more important than that. And just one more thing. You know, I've met people who have lived and produced at the highest level. And the one thing that they didn't take care of every step of the way was their health. And subsequently now they're experiencing health challenges and health issues that potentially could have been avoided had they become more conscious about how they were living. Okay, so the antidote to everything is becoming conscious, is to waking up to who we are, is to illuminating the subconscious mind and bringing our awareness to that. Those automatic habits, patterns, and behaviors that are reinforced through some emotion. And this investment of time that you're making in this exploration of how we go about doing that is the most valuable investment of time, because the only real commodity is time. And if you truly allow yourself to receive the gift that's being offered to you now, you can literally start to undo and unwind everything that's been playing out inside of you as a result of all of the unconscious choices that you've been making. So I just want to thank you with all of my heart, because I used to be someone that wasn't healthy. I used to be someone that was making unconscious choices. I used to be, I mean, you know, I'm still on that journey, but the level of information that I had inside of me was way beyond. I mean, literally. And so I can't even begin to thank you enough for offering people access to this information, and just for the sincerity and the love with which you're going about doing it deeply touches my heart. So now I have tears too.
Well, thank you for your thank you. And I accept, and Ike and I are so passionate about bringing consciousness to the world, whether it's physical health, mental health, spiritual health, all rolled together. And thank you for doing this. You are just a delight, and it's so great to connect with you and your essence. And I really appreciate you doing this with us, Panache.
Thank you. My love to you both, and long may this message and this expansion of this energy continue out beyond all of this to reach people all over who are in need of being reminded that it's possible for them. So my love to you both. Thank you for offering space in this way.
Awesome. And thank you everyone who is watching, who is listening right now, for showing up for yourself. That is the number one step. You have to show up for yourself, and here you are. So thank you so much for being with us, and we'll see you again soon. Take care. Hello, everyone. I just wrapped up another great class with Panache Desai. The overarching message with Panache was you are enough. We talked about this in and out, and what a beautiful, beautiful person that he is. And I just really hoped you enjoyed it. And we talked about the physical, the mental, the spiritual benefits of knowing and believing you are enough. We also talked about what happens physically, mentally, and spiritually in your life if you do not know and believe that you are enough. And he talks a lot about authenticity, right? That's a big part of his message, is why being authentic is so important to maintaining our vitality as we age. And just the overall message here is be who you are. No matter who you are watching or listening right now, just be exactly who you are, not the person that you're following on social media, not your favorite actor or actress, not your neighbor, not your partner, not your parents. Just be who you are and live your authentic life, whatever that looks like for you. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you again real soon.